Aloha, mamas, and welcome to episode number 7 of the Mama Mindset podcast. I hope you're having a beautiful day, night, moment, wherever you are in this glorious expanse of this world and space and time. I've had so many fun thoughts lately about what I wanted to talk about next with you all and hear from your beautiful neurons and what you're marinating on. And today it kind of came to me actually during a meditation. I've gotten into the habit of doing a meditation after I finish working out. We have a Peloton, I think I've mentioned before. And so tonight I didn't even get on it till 10 p.m. but I was on there. I get to work out, and I did a St. Paddy's Day ride, which was really fun. We also did a bike ride around our town today and blasted Irish tunes, like courtesy of Amazon, and it was really fun. And I also learned some very good facts that St. Paddy's Day is with D's, not T's, so St. Paddy's Day. And I was doing a meditation after I was done working out, which also, by the way, with working out lately, I have implemented into my regimen, and just what I choose to do, not what I have to do, is cooling down and stretching. And these were unheard of to me and in my life realm, and just my thought process as an ex-athlete in college, and just the way that I would push my body, and that, if I put on a sports bra and the whole thing, like it needs to be like a crazy sweat session, and sometimes it does. Sometimes a really cleansing workout is super strenuous and hard. And sometimes moving your body in a different way is more reverent. And I've really been tuning into that mama tuition lately of what does my body and my emotional being like need today? Is it yoga? Is it walking? Is it, like a sweat sesh on the bike? And so honoring my body and being reverent with cooling down. And it's fun for me, like the scientist in me with my Apple Watch, I watch like my heart rate come down and just take 5 minutes and do a cool down ride. And then I also come off the bike and stretch. And I never used to stretch, like even warming up. We would do dynamic warm up in college, which I really like. Warming up with moving and stretching and getting your muscles limber and prepared for the activity that you're about to do. I think it's a mirror of just how we treat ourselves, that we just kind of like feel like we have to be on, almost as moms too, where we wake up and we're like, okay, it's time to start, and we're going to start at 100 miles an hour, just to pick an arbitrary speed. It's probably more than that. We're way out of line on our speed limit that maybe our soul craves. And we do that all day, every day, without refilling, without refueling. And we don't really warm up for our day. We don't really cool down after our day's done. We just like start, stop, and it's abrupt. It's go time. We don't even have a pit crew. We're our own pit crew. It's just like burning so much fuel all the time. And what if we chose to warm up, whatever that is, whatever reverent way that was coming into your day? Again, like granted, I know that's not always possible with people coming in and the way that we have to respond and react. But what if you then carve out moments as they come? And how do you debrief with yourself as the day ends? A lot of us, we hit the pillow and we start scrolling, and we kind of allow other people's stories and other news events that can be, and oftentimes are, inflammatory in nature. And the scrolling is in and of itself isn't bad or wrong. But I feel it does invite those feelings of inadequacy in us. And sometimes at the end of the day, when our decision fatigue is at capacity, this means we've made thousands and thousands of micro decisions throughout the day. We're more susceptible, perhaps more vulnerable, I would offer, to those feelings of shame, guilt, comparison, minimizing ourselves. And so in that precious moment of the close of the day, when we could meet ourselves and debrief and really process what happened that day, we're oftentimes, and it's okay, we're tired, but we're oftentimes giving away that time to sources outside of us, on social media or news or watching something. And we all need some mindless stuff sometimes. Like, don't get me wrong, I do it. I have scrolled, I watch Netflix. But what if we were reverent about the way we cooled down after the day of working out, and after a day of showing up as the mom, the visionary, the artist, the woman, creative that you are? How would that feel? How would your body and your soul respond to that? I offer that it would be extremely reverent and life-giving and nourishing, and you would learn a lot about yourself. I'm learning a lot about myself, choosing to stretch, choosing to cool down. And so the newest thing I've been doing, because I've been doing that for a couple of weeks, is like the cool down rides and then the stretch, is a meditation at the end of a workout, which again, I'm usually like, okay, done with the workout. That was the me time that I get. It's time to go. And ending with a meditation before I walk out, it for me, movement in any form, it is meditative. It gets my thoughts going. Sometimes connecting to music, it's very inspiring for me. So the meditation is another way that helps me open that portal into the divine downloads that are coming to me. Or it's just a place for me to practice radical compassion for myself. So tonight I did a kindness meditation. And what came up for me was the way in which we think kindness meditation, like, okay, practicing kindness toward other people. And that's important. And we model that for our children every day. It starts with being kind to ourselves and what that looks like and how expansive that can be, that kindness to ourselves. And for some reason, I was drawn to the movie, thinking about the movie Inside Out, which I love that movie for children and for the inner child and all of us, in how it illustrates that all of our emotions are our teachers. All of them are welcome in that control center in our brain. If you haven't seen it, it's a really great Pixar movie about this little girl named Riley and her emotions who live in her control center, and how they respond to various life events and transitions, like a big move across country and her coming into adolescence and school situations and all of it, how they all collide and come together. And I think being kind to ourselves is very much rooted in validating all of our emotions as teachers. We're often not kind to ourselves in the sense of negating, minimizing, shutting down any emotions that we perceive to be a threat or something we just don't feel like we have the emotional bandwidth to deal with at the time. Often those emotions are, feelings of fear, feelings of disgust. Those are two of the ones that live in Riley's head. Feelings of inadequacy and anything that's uncomfortable and creates like a tension in our physical body. We're like, nope, done. That reptilian brain in us, that fight or flight sense is like, that's dangerous. You gotta pivot away from that. So we often do that. And in doing that, we are robbing ourselves of the chance to learn what those emotions came to show us. And what if you believed that every emotion was meant to prosper you, that every emotion you have was divinely created for you to experience as a human being, as a woman, as a mom, as a visionary, that the complex cascade of emotions and the hormonal harmony, the symphony of everything that makes us a woman, that sometimes in society is labeled too much, that we are taught and maybe prescribed to, that social narrative that is handed down, that, okay, like even from adolescence, we're just a lot during our period week and the menstrual cycle. And we kind of self-fulfill that prophecy of like, okay, I'm mad because it's my period. Or what if you're just mad because you're mad, or you're sad because you're sad? Anger, sadness, fear, disgust, happiness, joy, all of them, they're all a part of you. And negating one emotion or part of you or what you're experiencing has ramifications. It's denying a part of yourself, and it's not being kind to ourselves. And we do it frequently. We don't want to be messy. We don't want other people to have to clean up our mess. We feel like we're being empathetic toward other people right now, and that whatever we need or feel can be backburnered and can be dealt with later. And that constant vicious cycle of doing that is not showing up for ourselves, and it's ultimately not kind. And so what came to me today in the meditation was to come and live chat with myself and with you, that kindness to ourselves is often rooted grounded in the reality of being willing to paddle through the heavy and the sadness that we feel in different aspects of our lives. The sadness in terms of feeling isolated sometimes, maybe in our own homes or away from our social circles, or the way that we might have been before motherhood, right? I love being a mama. It's literally, it brings me immense joy every day. And I'm so thankful that God chose me to mother my two children. And I, similar to probably you, wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. It is a new identity that we take on when we're mothers. So it is okay for us to try to come into alignment with that, and to accept this transition to a completely new human being and role that we are. And I think it's important for some moms, right, to grieve what was, and then to allow space to continue to enjoy those passions, whatever it is that fills your cup. And so I think this is one place where we can get really tripped up, is that we feel it's not okay to feel sad about that. I must be happy and content 100% of the time with my role in doing this and triaging little people's needs. And it's these limiting beliefs that feed into us, and then this negating of these emotions that are there to serve us, because ultimately they're there saying, hey, I need a little more nourishment. I need a little bit more self-love, self-care. Remember, self-care is never selfish. For me, self-care involves movement every day. So I go and I work out, and it's like an hour maybe, or whatever time period it is. And I do it now with joy and reverence. That word keeps coming up. It's like going to self-church. It's a spiritual gym. It's a spiritual gym, and it happens to involve movement for me, and your spiritual gym could be different. And that is not mutually exclusive with being a good mom. Taking the time for yourself. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. Some moms need that quality time, and they need that to be spent with themselves outside of the home to recharge and regroup. And that's beautiful. And so leaning into this, sadness, or not necessarily irritability, it could be in the form of irritability. It could be just a restlessness that you're feeling, discomfort, all the things that we're kind of like, how can I band-aid that and move on from that? Because it's too much for me. It's too much for everyone around me. You're never too much. Find that you are here in mama mindset because you're among people that see you and that validate you, and you are not too much. Your emotions, all of them are welcome here. The hot messes that we all are, let's be hot messes. It's those hormones, it's those emotions that make us multidimensional and beautiful and strong and powerful and empathic. And those abilities and those skills and those superpowers grow when we nurture the garden of our own souls. And so kindness, I would offer, really comes from getting in touch with those emotions that we're having and exploring those. What are they there to teach us? How can we learn from what's coming up in the moment? And I think sadness is one I wanted to really expand upon today and be willing to submerge in, because sadness is often something, for example, right? If your baby's crying or your child's crying, we're kind of like, a lot of times, stop crying. What can I do to make it stop? Or how can I assuage what's going on for them right now? And those are all natural, wonderful mothering instincts. Oftentimes, taking the time to find out what they're going through. What can you tell me why you're sad? It's okay to cry. Crying is a perfectly natural part of the human experience. Sadness is a survival instinct for infants that cues us that they need some nurturing, and there might be physical needs that need to be met. They could be emotional ones, bonding ones, holding. And we are fine with infants crying, except if they cry too much, then we're like, they're crying too much. The point is we have this too much threshold that's hardwired into us. And then past a certain age, we're kind of like, stop crying, and that's something that's taught to us too. And I would offer that crying is one of the most natural things that a child, a human, you, me, a woman, women, men, any of us can do. It's the manifestation of a sadness or some conflicting emotion in us that we're allowing to escape. It's a cathartic expression of us being kind to ourselves and allowing it out. And remember how we spoke about how I feel that our fears don't hold power over us anymore when we express them, acknowledge them, articulate them. I think it's the same thing about sadness. And if you've seen the movie Inside Out, one of the core, I mean, they talk a lot about core memories, but one of the core themes, one of the core truths, one of the core invitations that is portrayed, illustrated in the movie is that sadness is a character throughout, that the other emotions are kind of like, can we find her other things to do? Because she's like kind of messing up what's going on here. And we don't want Riley, the main character, to be sad. Like, we need to make sure she's happy and well adjusted. But as the movie continues and ends up in climaxes, sadness, Joy, the main happy character, she realizes that sadness, the dimensions of Riley experiencing her emotions, and specifically sadness, is integral to her eliciting empathy from her caregivers and her environment, for her to go through and process and grieve and mourn the move that she made across country, and the friendships that have shifted, and the way that it impacted her relationships with her parents, and all of the feelings that came up. And when she had repressed all of those, and sadness hadn't been allowed to fully manifest herself, Riley had resorted to things like thinking about running away and buying a bus ticket to go back to where she came from. And that's a common human reaction too, right? Like, we want to just maybe rewind and go back to the way it was. Like, remember that, I don't know why I'm thinking this right now, but 80s and 90s children that we used to go to Blockbusters, and the main tagline was, "Be kind, please rewind." Like, I'll never forget that. And I'm not sure why that came to me, but here in these life chats, I'm always going to just drop it in when it comes. And we think that's, kind, and in other ways, like that, we're just going to rewind. We're just going to go back to the beginning, and then we can redo this. We can redo this scene, and then I'll go to another path where I'm not sad. But it's beautiful the way it's portrayed in Inside Out, and the way that we can choose to acknowledge and uplift sadness in our own lives. That sadness isn't bad. It's beautiful. It connects us, oftentimes in times of crisis, and we come together. It shows a more beautiful side of humanity, because we put down our own interests, and we are at our best empathic selves. And so our children's sadness illustrates to them that they're important to us, that the times of crisis that they go through, whether they're sad about skinning their knee in the driveway or sharing a toy, like, we're there in those moments, navigating it with them, finding out what it was. And that's a beautiful thing. And we feel needed and wanted in that moment, and they feel seen. And that's a beautiful dynamic. And somehow, as we age, we feel like that's not a privilege that we get to enjoy anymore. So we just hold on to all the sadness that we have, and the different disappointments that we go through, and the different perceived rejections that we have. And I also want to offer one of my other favorite things. What if all rejection was redirection? Like, we will be rejected. It is a part of the human experience as well. But what if it wasn't a failure? It's just an opportunity to pivot. It's an opportunity to look at things differently. And it's a redirecting point. Like, okay, where are we going to go from here? And this kindness, going back to returning to kindness, and really rooting down into the core of who we are, putting down those roots that are getting stronger with each Mama Mindset moment that you're having, with each choice that you're having to tune in here to Mama Mindset, which, thank you for being here, or whatever it is that you're doing that's nourishing you. Those are strengthening and increasing the roots that you're putting into the ground below you, the earth beneath your feet, which is there holding you, supporting you, your body that's showing up for you every single day. Those roots, you know who you are, you know you're safe, you know you're grounded. And from that place of neutrality, you're spreading your wings, growing more branches, feeling happy, feeling safe to soar, and experience all your emotions. And not only experience them, but validate them, process them, ask them what they're there to teach you. And so I really feel that this is well timed and needed, that we all need to hear it, is that sadness is part of the experience of life, of humanity. And it's it's a beautiful part. And so submitting to it, surrendering to it, asking what it's there to teach us, and then allowing it to be a portal to reach out to other people for that validation and to connect, could be to our partners, in our marriages and our other intimate relationships and our friendships and our community. It gives others the chance to see us in a vulnerable space and to connect with us. And it isn't weakness, it's strength. We see it as strength in our children. We see it often as strength in men who are willing to, cry or ask for help. We see that as strength. And I think we're becoming more and more gifted at that societally. And we often, though, still, I find myself not allowing space for that. And so I'm looking forward to challenging myself and setting the intention to be kind by allowing my emotions as they come to be my teachers. And another direction I wanted to pivot on this same life chat latte sip is that sipping sadness. I love that. I think we're very gifted as mothers and as women at minimizing our traumas because we compare them like, okay, well, for example, I'm going to use birth stories because I think that's a common place where we minimize any trauma. Like, well, my baby's healthy, and so I don't get to be sad about the way that things happened during my birth. And we just cover all of that up and we move on. It's okay to be, and it is wonderful. And I'm so happy that your baby's healthy and thriving, or whatever your story is, that we have modern medicine and NICUs do some amazing things. I am so thankful for the many early mornings and late nights that I have spent caring for newborns and super early tiny babies and their families and getting to know their mamas in the NICU. Oftentimes, we're going to have some life chats with some of my favorite mamas on here about topics that are heavier too, about infant loss and infertility and other issues that happen, right, to mamas, and that bring up those emotions, which again are there as teachers. I do feel that, even in my own story, and I'll share some of that to illustrate this too, that we minimize traumas like around our birth stories because we look at other people and we say, well, my story isn't as severe or bad as that, so I don't get to be sad about this because I have a healthy baby. Next, move on. And what if you did go back through your birth story or whatever crisis happened, trauma happened in your life? Traumas are big and they're small. They come in all shapes and sizes. It's anything that might be an adverse event. And I think the way that it continues to be an adverse event is if you don't meet it head on and kind of unpack it and debrief with yourself. Like, okay, well, how did that make me feel? For example, with my daughter, who's now 5, I was working. I was in my second year of residency when I got pregnant with her. And I remember working in the ER, being so excited, kind of knowing that, my period had come, and I had been really desiring pregnancy and looking so forward to this chapter of being a mom. I loved getting to take care of other people's children and babies, and that honor and privilege. I was just so overwhelmingly excited that this might be the season where I got that sacred privilege as well. And so even before I ever took a test, I kind of like felt the magic of that and hoped that it was true. And all through my pregnancy with her, I had this simultaneous excitement and also grief going on, that I was so excited I got to bring my daughter with me to work every day. This is the mentality that I had even through like 90-hour work weeks, because that's, what happens when you're a resident. And I will talk more extensively about that experience as well. And already grieving the fact that I was going to have to come back to these 90-hour work weeks and what I had chosen at that time, and not have her with me. So I really enjoyed, I enjoyed pregnancy and all of the signs that validated that I was pregnant in the first trimester with some of the fatigue and morning sickness. I reject that because mine was kind of all the time and it wasn't terrible. Again, I'm minimizing my own, but I kind of had nausea, like just like on and off throughout. And when it came time, I was 40 weeks and 6 days when she was born. And all along my final home stretch of pregnancy, people were like, "You're still pregnant," like showing up. And, I got the like, "Are you having twins? Are you sure it's not twins?" And I had, toward the end of my pregnancy, polyhydramnios, which is excess amniotic fluid. So, I was large and feeling not so in charge. And I was showing up, and the mother mentality that was already developing in me was like, well, I'm going to work every single second because I don't want to miss any minute of my non-existent postpartum maternity leave, because we didn't have maternity leave option. It was just taking vacation, because clearly giving birth is vacation, said with much facetiousness. And then I would just make up all those days and finish residency a little bit later than my peers if I took time with my daughter, which I'm so thankful for that version of me, because I did choose to take 12 weeks, which is kind of unheard of. And nobody had had babies for a long time before me in my residency program. So I do feel like I had the opportunity to pave a path for a few high or pregnant female residents that were coming after me. But anyways, I had this, dueling mentality that was like so thankful to be pregnant and getting to be with her, which actually at that time I didn't know if it was, I didn't find out till the delivery with either one of my children, if it was a boy or a girl. I just knew, and the nurses were, and a lot of people in my life were like, "How could you not want to know?" And I was like, I knew it was a human. I knew it was a baby. I knew I was so grateful to be chosen to be their mother. And that for me was the focus and the faith that I needed and enjoyed, that just sacred knowing. And I also totally honor when people want to find out. I think I get that. I think it's fun. So here I am showing up at my 28-hour shifts, and they're 24-hour shifts in residency, but you have this flex 4 hours, which you pretty much always spend just handing over your patients and tying up all the loose ends. So it's basically 28-hour shifts, very busy, where I rarely slept, and my 90-hour work weeks. And at one point I was like wheeling myself around at the end, because here I was like 40 weeks, 6 days. And I remember going to with my husband to this store. I had just gone to a post-dates ultrasound, because that's what I was going to tell you, is that the reason that it went so long is because it was first pregnancy and things were going well and I was healthy. And I really did desire and to have, go into labor naturally. And I had a favorable presentation, meaning from like week 37 or 38 and on, I was 5 centimeters dilated and 90% effaced, right? But not in labor. And that is wild to me, and so magnificent that our bodies are so different in how we present with labor and how we handle our pregnancy, right? So here I am at the hospital doing full shifts and in 5 centimeters dilated and 90% effaced and not in active labor. And so every day came in, people were like, "You're still pregnant." And I remember taking like bathroom selfies and just those scrubs, like, thank goodness for those tie-ons. And it was wild, but it was also so beautiful. And I mean, I even had comments that was like, we just need new carpet in here. Can you like maybe go into labor in here, like have my water break on this like office carpet so they could get new carpet or something. It was funny. But I also remember feeling very safe, having that perception of safety, because literally our pediatrics floor was 2 floors down from where I would check in, for maybe even 1 floor down from where I was going to check in for L&D when the time came. So I was like, I'm already there where I need to be. So I got this pulse dates ultrasound because I was 40 weeks and 6 days, and still this baby was super comfortable in mommy, just swimming around in there. And it was on that day that it was discovered I had the extra fluid. It was just time to move things along. So that's an indication for doing that. I had tried all of the things, that we hear about to help augment labor, including I ran up to the top of Diamond Head, which was like a 3-mile run from our house. So super pregnant, like running, and the amount of like pelvic shifting that went on with my pubic bone and all of those things was so wild. And I think we underestimate the relaxin, that hormone that relaxes our body. And that's why we have to be cautious during yoga, and we're like extra nimble and extra limber during pregnancy. And so here I am. It doesn't, and you're not immune to it when you're a physician, you know, all this stuff. Like I ran up this super steep hill to try to augment labor and ended up being so thankful I didn't go into labor because I was so sore from running and like all of the pelvic bone shifting that went on from doing that. It makes me sore even thinking about it. I remember I was wearing like black yoga pants, a black shirt, and this pink Maui Surfriders hat that one of my patients had given me. And y'all, okay. And then we had like the spicy Indian food, and obviously she was so happy in there. And we went into this Tibetan singing bowl store, my husband and I, that was, I don't even know why I went in there, but it was going out of business. So we saw this clearance sign and we went in and we were just checking it out and like playing the gongs, at the end of yoga sessions, how they'll sometimes play that really amazing resonating bowl. And so I learned a lot more about this that day, and we bought one and we still have it. And it's super special to me. But I remember also fielding a call from my OB there saying, hey, here's the results of your ultrasound today, and it's time to get this baby, time to have a baby. Let's check you in tomorrow morning. And so it was this is early to mid-August 2016, and it was during the Olympics. And so I went home and thinking, okay, this is, still I might go into, there's still part of me that was like, I might go into spontaneous labor. But it was all those feelings of like anxiety. And, I felt like I was like preparing for game time again. Like, okay, I'm going to be a new mom. Like, I hope I show up and do my best for her tomorrow. And I was just like, so excited, but all like extremely anxious too. And, ready to go, but also not ready to go. Like, like all of it. And so I remember watching the Olympics and packing. And then the next morning we were driving into the hospital, and it was a slight drizzle, and I was kind of notifying all the people that I thought I should notify. And we had left our husky, our first baby. And, I had just like had a chat with him that the next time I saw him, he was going to be a big brother, all the things. And so we check in to L&D, to the same floor that I've responded to thousands of times as a pediatrician, to help get to care for these new babies that have just been freshly born, and these mamas and all of their majesty and power, who have just delivered these miracles, the tiniest little new island babies. And they're slammed. They're like, again, it doesn't matter like who you are. And I wasn't playing that card, and I don't need to play that card or wouldn't want to. They're slammed. Like there's women giving birth in the ORs that are having vaginal deliveries because there weren't L&D rooms. And they were even triaging some moms down to the pediatric floor where I worked. And I love my colleagues, love that. But I was like, I hard pass on like going down there. So they were like, you're not in active labor. Can you come back later? Like basically like, here's your buzzer. It's Chili's. Like we'll call you when your table's ready. And so all of these emotions that I was like, okay, I'm ready. And we had woken up super early, and probably didn't sleep well the night before because you're getting up to shishi, which is pee, a lot. So we go back home, we watch more Olympics, and I like cuddle with Kai more. And then in the afternoon they called again, and we went back in. And I remember my OB, who was super cool. I was bouncing on a ball for a while. They broke my water. It's called ARUM, artificial rupture of the membranes. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like I can maybe take a shower. I don't feel much. I'm at 5 centimeters. Just fascinated to know what my course of labor would be like, having never done this before. And I was really intentional. And my desire was to have an unmedicated vaginal birth. And again, the one thing that we know that I've experienced personally and professionally is that plan for the unexpected, like expect the unexpected in labor. Mostly it doesn't go according to our birth plans. It's not wrong to have a birth plan and to have those intentions and to kind of speak into existence what you desire to come. And so I think a lot of healing can happen when we sort of are willing to harmonize and rectify like what actually happened versus maybe what we envisioned or desired to happen. And so, right, because do they often align? Like probably not. And we mostly just negate our feelings and are like, well, there's a healthy baby, so next. And that is really reinforced by the societal narrative that's like healthy mama, healthy baby, like here we go. And totally claiming that C-sections and all of the ways that we're able to in modern medicine and today help ensure and augment those processes so that the mom's health is honored and the baby's health is honored and we have a healthy mom and healthy baby are beautiful. I do feel, and I'm sure you and your own birth stories, which I would love to hear, by the way, that navigating that process in a very sacred way in a collaborative space and explaining things as well as possible, not out of fear, is very important. Because a lot of the trauma that mamas experience in their birth stories are related to the ones that I've spoken to, at least in my own life, maybe not feeling heard or validated, or maybe understanding things as they happened. So here I am bouncing on this ball thinking like, wow, like I'm not really feeling much. And then bam, maybe 1 to 2 hours after my water broke, which it was a lot of water that came out because of the polyhydramnios. It was a lot of water, mamas. I hit very active labor, already being 5 centimeters when we started, probably 6 actually. And I remember breathing through it and trusting myself. And there was this really cool nurse aide. I'll never forget her. And she was so magical. And my husband was also just amazing. And I had said, like, I don't want these fluorescent hospital lights on. So we had these little candles from Costco, the little flicker ones. And I had some Zen kind of music, which honestly, to be honest, I don't even remember the music, but I will say, and this is in my 5 things not to pack in your hospital bag, bringing like a speaker is so great. And the nurses love it too. The hospital, the doctors, the hospital staff, we all love it. Like when there's music in the postpartum room and it's just fun. And I remember leaning into the discomfort. And this is maybe a metaphor for all mamas, right? Like leaning into the discomfort, being comfortable in the uncomfortable, knowing that my body was literally designed for this, that with every contraction, strong contraction of my uterus and body, it was this beautiful symphony between my baby and me and us getting closer to meeting. And yes, I acknowledged the pain and the tension in my body and the mounting, like the way that my labor happened, it was like getting really quickly escalating. Like those contractions were getting more forceful very fast. And the intervals between them were also shortening very fast. But I was able, and I claim that, to accept it, and say, I'm willing to endure this. I'm able and I'm ready. And even I was able to smile through like the start of them and take a breath and say, okay, this is happening. And I'll share with you on my son's birth, kind of like the visual imagery that I used there. And I remember my OB saying, okay, you're going to feel the ring of fire here. And the ring of fire, like on Finding Nemo, he's like trying to swim through, but yeah, it was every kind of burn. And that's when the baby's head is engaging in the pelvis and there's some nerves in that area. And so that burn is real. Let me tell you, I'm sure you've experienced it. And if you haven't, from an epidural or a C-section, you had your birth and it is your beautiful story. For me, that ring of fire, it fired. And then when it was time to push, I remember it being completely different. I remember telling them, you need to check me right now. And they were like, oh, it's an infection risk. Cause it is like, and I said, no, check me. And they did. And I was 10 centimeters and they're like, okay, it's time to push. And I remember that primal sense of when it's push time, your body is like taking over and you surrender to it. And I remember surrendering to knowing that my body knew, it had an inner knowing. I needed to just ride that knowing, trust it, have faith in it, and endure it and embrace it. And I was able to do all of those things. And I'm so grateful for that. And pushed maybe for about an hour. And I remember toward the end, she was like, okay, can you give me 2 pushes on this contraction? Right. And the inner athlete and the people pleaser, and just like I will. And I mean, I fully pushed super, super hard. And when she was delivered and JD said, it's a girl, it was just one of those moments that will forever transport me. And I had the privilege and honor of getting to do skin to skin with her right away. And I was aware that things were going on in my body that didn't feel, again, as a first time mom, I was like, it felt out of control and not right. But here I have this beautiful newborn on my chest, and I've just delivered her. And I asked, like, I reached down and I delivered her. And that was, for me, just such a monumental privilege. And to get to embrace her as she left my body, and the safety that she had known during those 40 weeks and 6 days. I like to say she was just growing out her hair and nails and mermaiding her way through life, which she still loves to be mermaid. So here I am, breastfeeding and bonding with her skin to skin, and just suspended in that sacred space. And I'm also heavily bleeding. I had postpartum hemorrhage, which is when you have excessive blood loss. And my OB, super skilled, super amazing. She's trying to stitch and figure it out. And they're like feeling my uterus to see, because a lot of times if your uterus isn't contracting back, that could be a reason. And they get to the point where they're putting in so many stitches, and I'm unmedicated. Like she asked me if I wanted some medication. And I was kind of like, no, I've just delivered this 8-pound, 10-ounce human, and I think like I'm good. But it was, looking back, like maybe some local anesthesia would have been a good choice for me. But I was trying to breastfeed, and cease. Bless me. All of this is going on. And so it gets to the point where the sutures are falling out, because like the tissue is so friable. We call it friable. It's just so macerated and so kind of traumatized from the birth process that it's not even holding the stitch that she's trying to put in. And the other male OBGYN who came in to help her like do the stitches. And I'm starting to feel the effects of like a lot of blood loss. And my vital signs are reflecting that too. And so eventually they get the situation under control, and they're kind of like, we're just going to surgically pack you, which is, they just put in some surgical packing into, all up in there in the lady parts and in the vaginal canal to try to absorb the blood. And then they stitched me very skillfully, and I'm thankful for that. I had very severe tearing, 3rd degree tearing. And yeah, so there was lots of tearing, which we can get into that too. And at the time, it was the first time mom, and I didn't realize like the extent of that and how that was going to play out. And I can see the computer battery running down. So this might be like a part 2, because I have a lot to say about this. But I remember getting wheeled up to the postpartum floor, and it was like one of the tiniest postpartum rooms that we have in our hospital. And I can remember having doctored in that room many times before. JD had to like move his bedside chair that was also where he slept when someone opened the door. But we made it work. And that I got a meal, because I hadn't eaten because I had checked in that morning. I hadn't eaten in definitely 12 plus hours. And I got like some gross turkey and gravy. And I'm not a gravy person, but I just remember eating that meal. And JD had gone to the newborn nursery to do her bath time with her first bath. And I was there in the room alone. And I started feeling like the physician in me was like, okay, I'm not fine. I'm not okay. And everything in me wanted to be okay. Like we've started our family. My husband, I got to see him in the newborn delivery room as a dad and holding his daughter, and how powerful that was. And we've just experienced this triumphant, amazing moment that we had dreamed about so long. I have a healthy baby girl. She is She is, I get to be her mom, but I'm not fine. And I really wanted to be fine. And sometimes I think knowing a lot in medicine can be the curse that is cure. And so I started drinking like tons of water, thinking maybe I can hydrate myself through this. I had IV fluids going to try to keep like the blood pressure more stable with the blood loss. But I could not get up to go to the bathroom. I could barely sit up without just having extreme racing heart and shortness of breath and chest pain, which is a sign of significant severe anemia from my blood loss, my postpartum hemorrhage. And also like the situation down there with so many stitches and the foreignness, which we've all gone through. And if you haven't yet, if you're an expectant mama, none of this is meant to traumatize you. You will have your own birth story. It will be beautiful. It will be your own. It is to illustrate that all of us go through some type of trauma, even if and maybe you didn't, maybe you had the birth of your dreams. And I hope that for you. I manifest that for you. My point in being kind to ourselves and being reverent to ourselves is that we can have a successful delivery with a healthy baby, and we can still choose to minimize the parts of our story that involved us. And so I want to speak more to this about what was going on with me in my postpartum period and the postpartum hemorrhage and the significant 3rd-degree tearing that I experienced with my vaginal delivery, and how that played out, and how I in a lot of the naivety of being a first-time mom and not being in this space yet of Anique 2.0 and having that radical compassion, having that ability and emotional bandwidth to, validate the trauma that I went through and process that, and how impactful that's been. So I am on the other side of that. And it was, I do love my birth and story, and I claim it, and all of its humor and all of its pain and all of its trauma. It's all part of it. And that all makes it beautiful. And I don't gloss over any of it anymore. And I have a lot more humor and a lot more wisdom and divine downloads to share with you about that. So I want to continue this in the next. I didn't mean for this to be like cliffhangery, but I think that's just embracing how it's going to be. So I want to continue that in the next one. But for now, so I'll leave you in my small little postpartum room where I'm sitting there eating like 1 a.m. Hospital cafeteria, like maybe turkey with some gravy and peas, and like a Thanksgiving dinner in August. And I'm waiting for my husband and newborn daughter, which we knew that we wanted to use the name Camden either way. We didn't choose to disclose the name. It just felt for me so sacred to introduce her or him at that time, and her was who was destined to be to that name, and let it land on her and feel it. So her name Camden, and I'm waiting for Camden to come back. And her middle name is Micaiah, which in Hawaiian, Makai is toward the sea. And I did for just a feminine flair. So I'm waiting for Camden Micaiah to come back from the newborn nursery in her first bath, and Daddy with her, and for us to have our first night together as a family. And so I'm experiencing all of that joy and anticipation, and also triaging this like growing fear and dread that something was wrong with me in my body. And how was I going to advocate for myself, or was that going to go away, or just kind of willing it to be done and over, being proud of my body, but also present and knowing and validating that my body was communicating to me that there were problems, and where that space was, and how, and I can remember being suspended. I can return back to that version of myself. And I think that's really powerful. And I invite you to do that for yourselves, to really revisit your birth stories, every intimate detail of it that you can recall. And most likely you can recall a lot of it. And so, and even writing down, I have my birth stories written on the blog if you want to read them, for both my daughter Camden and my son Cruz. And I share them there, and I would love to hear your birth stories. I think owning them, claiming them, writing them down is such an amazing legacy, not only for your children, but for you. It's an act of kindness to really unlock and process and unpack all of the emotions that you felt. And all of them make it beautiful. They all are a part of it. So it's not just being happy. about it. It's allowing all of it. And I think that that spills into our postpartum period, and why a lot of us experience some isolation and some of the pathology psychologically that happens in the postpartum period is because we subscribe to this channel of, well, I need to just be happy. Like I need to be I need to be happy and like enjoy my baby. Even when I'm super tired and all of these things, like mama mindset. And what I would offer to us is that our emotions are all there as our teachers, as our guides, and it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling and to reach out. And I want expectant and postpartum moms, and it's something that I was so big on as a pediatrician in the office, and that I will when I see patients clinically and moms clinically now, is I want them to feel safe within the container of whatever emotion that they're feeling, and that it has no bearing on the fact that they were divinely chosen to be a mama, and that they are a beautiful, brilliant, capable, faithful mama who is meant to prosper. And she's meant to prosper through any emotional storm that she is having. And so I think it starts with, sometimes even now, no matter how far out you are from your birth to in your postpartum period, is just to go back and like experience your birth and all of the divine downloads, all of the transcending emotions and hormonal harmony that happened for you before, in your pregnancy period, in your expectant time, and at the birth, and in the postpartum aftermath that leads you up to wherever you are today. That's all part of your story, and it's all beautiful, and claiming it in all of its hot messness and all of its imperfection is a divinely wonderful thing to do for yourself. And it's a kind thing. So letting it all in. You are safe to rise. You are safe to feel all of it. And as always, I look forward to hearing from you. If you want to email me part of your birth story or any thoughts that you had around it, aloha@mamamindset.com. And thank you for your time and your intention to honor yourself today, and your choice to uplevel your life and your mindset by being here. It's an honor and it's a privilege, and it's one that I will never tire of expressing my gratitude for. Thank you for allowing me to show up in my genius zone and to have these delicious life chats. So from my very cold chai latte to you, aloha mama, and I will see you next time. And we'll continue the postpartum story of my birth with Camden and how I came to more vertical alignment with all of it that was going on, and claimed that trauma as part of my story. Aloha.